There's a battle happening right now, not on your screen, not outside your window, but inside your own mind. And the strange part, you didn't start it. You didn't even choose it. Anxiety creeps in quietly, sometimes with a reason, often without one. You could be scrolling your phone, lying in bed, or sitting in a meeting, and suddenly your chest tightens, your thoughts spin out of control, and a simple moment becomes unbearable. But here's the part no one talks about. Anxiety isn't just an emotion. It's not a weakness or a flaw. It's a survival system, forged through thousands of years of evolution. Long before traffic lights and social media, your ancestors were surviving in a world filled with real, physical threats. Their brains evolved to anticipate danger, to sound the alarm at the slightest sign of risk. A snapping twig, a shifting shadow, an unfamiliar noise, all could mean death. And those who hesitated, they didn't make it. But the world changed, and your brain didn't. Now, instead of lions, it sees threats in texts left unread, in unpaid bills, in uncertain futures, in the silence of a friend. Your brain is still trying to protect you. It just doesn't realize the battlefield has changed. So here's the real question. If anxiety helped us survive, why does it now make us suffer? What if the path to freedom isn't in fighting anxiety, but in understanding it? Because once you see how your brain creates anxiety, how it shapes your thoughts, your reactions, even your beliefs, you begin to see the map out of it. And that's what this story is really about. So let's rewind the clock and look at how this all began. Let's talk about the first time fear saved a life. To truly understand anxiety, you have to go back. Not years, not centuries, but tens of thousands of years, to a time when survival was the only goal and every breath could be your last. Picture it. A prehistoric man walks through a dense forest. He hears a sound, a sudden rustle behind a tree. He doesn't wait to check if it's the wind or a predator. He runs, instinctively, automatically. That jolt of terror, that spike in adrenaline, that was anxiety, and it just saved his life. This is where it all began. Anxiety wasn't meant to ruin your day. It was designed to keep you alive. In a world full of predators, natural disasters, and tribal warfare, the humans who panicked early, who anticipated danger, had a better chance of surviving. They didn't need proof of danger. The mere possibility was enough. Over time, nature rewarded this system. Enter the amygdala, the fear center of your brain. Its job, constantly scan for threats, interpret them, and send signals. Run, hide, freeze. And then there's your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that tries to think things through. It says, wait, maybe it's not a lion, maybe it's just the wind. But by the time it finishes that sentence, your amygdala has already flooded your body with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you to escape. In prehistoric times, this was a masterpiece of evolution. But in modern life, it's like using a nuclear alarm system to detect whether someone liked your Instagram post. Here's the twist. Your brain doesn't care if the threat is physical or emotional. It just reacts. That uncomfortable email, that awkward silence in a conversation, that uncertain future, your brain treats them as life-threatening scenarios. Because to your ancient wiring, they are. Rejection, it meant exile from the tribe. Failure, it could mean starvation. Uncertainty, it often preceded danger. Your brain evolved in a brutal world, and every signal it sends today is based on the assumption that world still exists. But here's the curse. You're no longer running from tigers, you're running from thoughts. And your body is reacting the same way, fight, flight, or freeze, even when there's no real danger. This is how the gift of anxiety became a curse. But now that you understand its origin, the next step is asking, why does it feel so uncontrollable? Why does your brain keep pressing the panic button, even when you try to stay calm? To answer that, we need to talk about the illusion of control. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed, truly overwhelmed. Maybe it was a moment of silence before getting bad news, or waiting for someone to reply, or staring at your ceiling at 2 a.m., replaying everything you said that day. What do all these moments have in common? Uncertainty. Anxiety thrives in the space between what is and what might be. And in that space, your brain screams for control. If I could just figure it out, fix it, predict it, prepare for it, then I could finally relax. But here's the cruel trick. The more you try to control everything, the more anxious you become. It's a paradox, and it's ancient. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." In other words, it's not life that creates anxiety. It's your desire to control what can't be controlled. A storm is coming. The Stoic doesn't panic. He can't stop the clouds, but he can choose how to respond. That's the only control that matters. And yet, most of us do the opposite. We try to micromanage the uncontrollable, obsessing over what someone thinks of us, what the future might bring, or how to avoid failure. Your brain wants certainty, but life doesn't offer it. And in that tug of war between desire and reality, anxiety is born. But this isn't just philosophy. Neuroscience agrees. When your brain senses uncertainty, it fires up the default mode network, the part responsible for rumination, worry, endless what-ifs. And because your brain is a pattern-making machine, it fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios, not because it's pessimistic, but because it's trying to protect you. But in trying to protect you, it imprisons you. This is the illusion. You think you're solving a problem by overthinking, but you're just feeding the fire. Letting go of control feels dangerous, but ironically, it's the path to peace. In Buddhism, there's a phrase, "The root of suffering is attachment." Attachment to outcomes, to control, to certainty. And here's where philosophy and brain science agree again. Peace comes not from controlling life, but from accepting its chaos. That doesn't mean giving up. It means redirecting your energy, because what you can control is how you respond to the chaos. And that's not just powerful, it's transformational. But if anxiety is born from illusion, what's actually happening inside your brain when the panic begins? Let's dive into the biology behind it, the chemistry of anxiety. Imagine your brain like a machine, not a cold, mechanical one, but a living, pulsing engine made of memories, emotions, and electric signals. Now imagine that machine trying to keep you safe, but doing it with blunt instruments. That's what anxiety is. Your brain flipping every emergency switch it has, whether the threat is real or imagined. Let's look at how it actually works. At the center of it all is your amygdala, a tiny almond-shaped part of the brain designed to detect threats. It doesn't wait for facts. It doesn't ask for logic. It senses fear and sounds the alarm. It sends signals to your hypothalamus, which fires up your sympathetic nervous system. And suddenly, your heart is racing, your muscles tense, your breathing speeds up. Your body thinks it's in danger, but the danger might just be a thought. That's the trap. Anxiety doesn't need something bad to happen. It only needs the possibility of something bad, and the more often this alarm goes off, the more sensitive it becomes. It's called sensitization. The brain starts reacting faster, earlier, stronger, even when there's no actual threat. But there's another player in this drama. The prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, the thinker. It's the part that says, relax, it's just a speech. Take a breath, it's only a phone call. It's not the end of the world. But when anxiety hits hard, the amygdala shuts that part down, because in a real emergency, thinking slows you down, and your brain still thinks it's running from lions. So you get caught in a loop. You feel anxious. You try to reason your way out. Your brain ignores logic. You feel even more anxious. And here's where it gets dangerous. Repeated anxiety doesn't just affect you emotionally, it physically changes your brain. Studies show that chronic stress and anxiety shrink the hippocampus, the part that regulates emotions, and strengthens fear circuits in the brain. It's like digging a trench. The more you run down the same thought path, I'm in danger, something bad will happen, the deeper the trench becomes. Eventually, you don't even choose the path. Your brain just slides into it automatically. This is how anxiety becomes a habit, not just of mind, but of structure. But it's not all bad news. Because if anxiety can change your brain, then so can you. But to do that, you need to understand the world your brain was built for and how completely different it is from the one you live in now. Let's talk about the mismatch between ancient instincts and modern life. Your brain is an ancient survival tool, but it's stuck in a world it wasn't built for. See, the wiring in your skull hasn't really changed in tens of thousands of years, but the world around it changed completely. Once upon a time, your greatest threat was a predator. Now it's a notification. Once it was a rival tribe. Now it's a comparison on Instagram. Once it was the dark. Now it's a news headline at 11 p.m. reminding you that everything might fall apart. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your brain doesn't know the difference between physical danger and digital stimulation. It sees a mean comment as a social threat, a late-night email as an ambush, a silent phone as abandonment, and it reacts biologically as if you're about to die. This is the mismatch, an ancient mind trapped in a modern storm. We live in a time where information is constant, endless, addictive. Scroll, click, refresh, your brain never gets a break. And the more you consume, the more your amygdala stays alert, scanning for threats that aren't really there. This isn't by accident. Your apps, your platforms, they're designed to hijack your attention, stimulate your dopamine, and keep your nervous system slightly on edge. Anxious people engage more. Scared people stay hooked. We're living in an environment of synthetic danger, not because tigers are chasing us, but because algorithms are. But here's the dark irony. Even when you're safe, in your room, in your bed, in a peaceful moment, your brain might still feel like it's in danger. Why? Because your brain doesn't operate on facts. It operates on patterns. And if all it's been fed for years is fear, tension, stimulation, uncertainty, then peace feels unnatural. Silence feels threatening. Stillness feels wrong. You've trained it that way without meaning to. This is how modern life keeps anxiety alive, by constantly triggering a system designed for survival. In a world where survival is no longer the problem. But it doesn't have to stay that way, because what's been trained can also be retrained. But before we explore how to take back control, we need to go even deeper. We need to ask the question beneath the biology. What if anxiety is just the cost of being conscious? Let's talk about the philosophy of suffering. Let's pause for a moment and ask something deeper. What if anxiety isn't just a flaw in our biology, but a reflection of something profoundly human? The philosopher Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, once wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl believed that suffering, even anxiety, only becomes unbearable when it feels meaningless. But once you find meaning in it, you find strength. So maybe the question isn't, how do I stop feeling anxious, but rather, what is my anxiety trying to say? Because beneath every panic, every moment of dread, there's often a signal, a message, a call to grow or change or pay attention. And that idea, that suffering might hold wisdom, echoes across cultures. Alan Watts, the modern interpreter of Eastern thought, once said, "Trying to control the future is like trying to control a mirage. It just makes you more anxious." He believed that resisting reality, trying to hold on to certainty, is like trying to grasp smoke. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Anxiety, in that view, isn't just about fear. It's about resistance, a refusal to let life flow as it is. And here's the paradox. The more you resist the anxious feeling, the more it controls you. But when you stop fighting it, when you observe it, listen to it, it begins to shift. It loses power. In Buddhism, this is called non-attachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting your emotions own you. You see them as clouds drifting across the sky, present but passing, real but not permanent. This is where philosophy offers something science alone cannot, a way to accept your anxiety without being defined by it. Because anxiety, at its core, may be the cost of having a mind that can imagine, a mind that can ask, what if? A mind that can dream, but also dread, that can remember pain and anticipate more. It's the burden of self-awareness, but also the key to liberation, because if you can see your suffering clearly, you can also transform it. And that brings us to the turning point in this journey. How do we stop anxiety from running our lives without trying to erase it? Let's talk about how to fight back, not with force, but with awareness. Here's the moment where everything starts to change, because you now understand where anxiety comes from, biologically, evolutionarily, philosophically. But understanding is only the first step. The next, awareness, not the casual kind of awareness, but the deep, conscious kind. The kind that watches your thoughts like a hawk, without judgment. The kind that notices the rising panic and says, "Oh, I see you. You're back." This is the essence of mindfulness, not trying to shut the anxiety up, but witnessing it. Because when you observe the anxious thought rather than become it, you break the loop. Think of it like this: you are not the storm, you are the sky that holds the storm. And here's where things get powerful. Studies show that mindfulness practice, to even just 10 minutes a day, literally shrinks the amygdala, the fear center of your brain. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, giving you more control over how you react. It trains your brain to respond instead of just react. This isn't just meditation, it's mental freedom training. But mindfulness isn't the only tool. Enter cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT is like practical philosophy. It teaches you to question your thoughts instead of obeying them. You think, "I'm going to mess up this interview." CBT asks, "Where's the evidence? Have you failed every time before? Is this thought helpful, or is it just fear pretending to be truth?" And suddenly the anxious thought loses its grip. You begin to challenge your mind, not surrender to it. There are other tools too, ancient and modern. Journaling, a place to unpack your thoughts, slow them down, turn noise into clarity. Breathing techniques like box breathing or 4-7-8 that calm the nervous system almost instantly. Grounding exercises that bring your focus back to the now when your mind is spiraling into what-ifs. And beneath all these tools is one message: you are not helpless, you are not broken, you are not your anxiety, you are the one observing it. And that simple shift from identification to observation is what gives you power. But here's the exciting part: your brain isn't just capable of managing anxiety, it's capable of being rewired entirely. That's where we're heading next, because your anxious brain is not set in stone. It's plastic, flexible, changeable, and you hold the tools to reshape it. One thought, one breath, one choice at a time. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about neuroplasticity and hope. Imagine this: your brain is not a fixed structure. It's not concrete. It's clay, soft, shapeable, alive. This isn't wishful thinking, it's neuroscience. It's called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself through experience. And it means one thing: the same brain that learned to be anxious can learn not to be. Every thought you think, every habit you repeat, every perspective you shift, it rewires your neural pathways. It carves new trenches in the mind. The question is, what kind of pathways are you creating? If you constantly rehearse fear, avoidance, worst-case scenarios, your brain strengthens those roads. But if you begin practicing calm, gratitude, observation, self-compassion, those become your new defaults. It's not magic, it's repetition. Think of it like physical fitness. You wouldn't expect to lift a heavy weight on day one, but with consistent reps, your muscles grow. Your brain is the same. And this is where small daily actions matter most. A few minutes of mindfulness every morning, a nightly journal entry confronting your fears, a walk without your phone, just you and your breath, a conscious moment of saying, "I see this anxious thought, and I choose not to believe it today." Every one of those moments is a rep in training your brain to trust safety over fear, presence over panic. And philosophy helps too. The Stoics practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst on purpose so it lost its grip. They believed that when you face your fears directly, not with dread but with clarity, they shrink. Meanwhile, Buddhist monks train their minds through compassion, even for their own suffering. They don't see anxiety as a failure. They see it as another being in pain asking to be understood. What if you treated your anxiety that way? Not as a monster to silence, but as a messenger to hear. This is how the machine rewires, not through force, but through presence, not through control, but through curiosity. not through shame, but through patience. You're not here to fight your brain, you're here to guide it, and that's where the real freedom begins. But before we close, there's one final image to leave you with. A way to reimagine anxiety, not as an enemy, but as a wild horse. And you're learning how to ride. Let's wrap it all up. Picture your brain like a wild horse, powerful, fast, beautiful, but also unpredictable. It bolts at shadows. It resists control. It throws you off when you try to grip too tightly. But here's the truth. That horse isn't broken. It just hasn't been trained. And anxiety, it's not a flaw. It's not weakness. It's the untamed force of survival, misfiring in a world it doesn't fully understand. But now you understand it. You've seen how your brain evolved to protect you, how it learned to fear, to anticipate, to prepare. You've seen how modern life exploits those instincts with endless notifications, infinite uncertainty, and impossible expectations. You've seen how your thoughts can build prisons, and how awareness, philosophy, and practice can slowly melt the bars. Anxiety doesn't vanish in a day. It whispers, it returns, it tests you. But the more you notice it without fear, the more you question it without judgment, the more you live alongside it without giving it the wheel, the more it loses its grip. Because the truth is, anxiety isn't the enemy. Ignorance is. And now you're no longer ignorant. You're no longer just reacting. You're responding. You're guiding. You're choosing. And that choice, made again and again, is how freedom begins. So the next time your chest tightens, your thoughts spiral, and the world feels too heavy, just pause, breathe, and remember, you are not your anxiety. You are the rider, and the horse is learning to trust you. If this helped reframe the way you see your own mind, then subscribe. Because the better you understand your thoughts, the more power you have to change your life.